Thank you for attending the presentation, Gender Reveal, Identity and Expression in the Workplace. For anyone who has ever been pregnant or had children or knows anyone who's had children, the first question that we always hear is, are you having a boy or are you having a girl? This sets an expectation, a binary expectation of gender from the very beginning. Recently, we've seen new and unique ways to reveal our child's gender. Confetti, explosions, cakes, Ferris wheels, fireworks, all new ways to shine a light on the gender of our new arrival. Here are a few examples of those. Touchdowns versus tutus, stashes versus lashes, little man or little miss, bow or bow tie. Each of these pictures sends a message, not just about the child's gender, but about the expected characteristics that are associated with that gender, all before the child is even born. Blue boys will score touchdowns, and pink girls will wear tutus. Pink girls will have long lashes, and blue boys will have mustaches. Blue boys will be born as little men, and pink girls will be born as little misses. Pink girls will wear bows, and blue boys will wear bow ties. Except sometimes we don't fit into the script that we've been given. As we grow up, we may identify and express ourselves. Traditional expectations like boys will grow up to be strong and become doctors and lawyers and firefighters, or girls growing up to be pretty and to become teachers, or actresses, or nurses, are limiting and outdated. Today, our children can grow up to be anything. Boys can become nurses. Girls can become president. All throughout history and culture, there have been many examples of genders and identities across the gender continuum, a result of both biology and culture. So what's the difference between biology and culture? I'm going to deconstruct that with just a few main points. First, we are shaped by our biology, our physiology, that determines in part our maleness and femaleness. Our physical anatomy and genitals, our chromosomes, which are a combination of X and Y, our sex-determining genes, and our hormones, all are put together to have our sex assigned at birth. This happens when, we have our child comes out, and if we've chosen to make it a surprise and not reveal the gender early, congratulations, it's a boy. Congratulations, it's a girl. For a small part of the population, they are born intersex, where their physical anatomy and chromosomes may not be congruent. And at that point, parents are asked to make a choice. Do you want to raise this child as a boy, or do you want to raise this child as a girl? We're also shaped by our culture. This includes attitudes, feelings, behaviors that are associated with a person's sex assigned at birth, and it can vary by time, place, location, country. First thing is our gender role. What does society expect of us? What role do they expect us to fill? We just saw that on the gender reveal slide. The next thing we look at is the behavior. Does that behavior fit? Is it congruent with the gender role expectation that we have? The next thing we look at is gender identity. Gender identity is our internal sense of being male, female, or trans. And that internal sense of identity comes from who's looking back at you when you're looking in the mirror. Who do you see looking back at you? Gender expression is how we express that gender identity to the world. And we all do it, every single one of us, regardless of our gender identity. When you put on makeup, or you put on clothing, you put on a tie, our voice, our mannerisms, everything about every one of us is a gender expression. And what that creates is an experience that is unique to every person and every individual. No two people experience gender the same. So the gender unicorn is a simpler way for us to think about biology, identity, and attraction. If you look at this unicorn, you have your sex assigned at birth. That's going to be those physical attributes we just talked about. Gender identity is how we think about our gender and who we are. Put that together, and gender expression is how we express all of that to the world. And again, we all do it. Romantic attraction represents who we are romantically attracted to. Sexual attraction represents who we're sexually attracted to. Sometimes that can be the same person. Sometimes it may not be the same person. Individuals who identify as transgender may identify as gay, straight, bisexual, asexual, pansexual. But there's one really important thing that we all have to remember, and that is that gender identity and sexual orientation are not the same. Gender identity is who you go to bed as. Sexual orientation is who you go to bed with. I'll say that again because it's very important and is often confused. Gender identity is who you go to bed as, and sexual orientation is who you go to bed with. So I'm going to think about some of the terms that you may have heard in relation to gender identity and gender expression. Several of those terms are listed on this slide, and this language is changing rapidly. 20 years ago, some of this language didn't exist. So it's important to be mindful that you may get one answer from someone if you ask how they identify one day, and you may get another answer the next day just because everything is evolving so rapidly. The term transgender is an umbrella term. It encompasses many other terms in the trans community. When someone identifies as part of the trans community, they may fall anywhere on a continuum of gender identity, and that can change at different times and places in their lives. Someone who is has a sex assigned at birth as male may identify as male or may identify as non-binary as they continue to grow and develop and experience life. They may eventually choose to identify as queer. That's an encompassing term, and I'm going to get into the specific terms in a moment. But just the understanding that as we continue to grow, our experience changes, and that changes our identity. So I'm going to go through a few of the terms on the slide. The first one I want to talk about is cisgender. Cisgender is a person who conforms to the gender or sex assigned at birth that they were. So it's someone who's born male, who identifies as male, and expresses themselves as male. So cisgendered is going to be based on the expectations of society. Non-binary is any gender that does not fit into the male or female binary or the cisgender definition. Bigender is a person whose gender identity may encompass both man and woman, male and female. An agender identity is a person who is internally ungendered and does not have an internal sense of gender identity at all. Gender fluid, gender hybrid, gender smoothie, that's a person whose gender identification and presentation shifts within or outside of societal expectations and or gender expectations. Queer is a term that some people may find offensive, and it used to be very offensive, but it's a general term that has been embraced by the LGBTQ plus community, and it can reference both gender and sexual orientation. And it essentially means that you don't conform to societal expectations for gender and or sexual orientation. It can still be offensive if it's not used by the LGBTQ community, but it is important if someone tells you that that's their identity, that you would respect that. Drag queen and drag king are really referred to performance, where it's performance art, where an individual dresses up as the opposite gender, and it's for performance only. But the person who's doing that may identify anywhere on the gender continuum. A crossdresser, or someone who identifies as a crossdresser, is most commonly someone who is cisgender. However, they enjoy dressing in clothes of the opposite gender. Transsexual is an outdated medical term that used to be used for someone who was transitioning from male to female or female to male. And you see the M to F and F to M on here. That's what it stands for, male to female or female to male, someone who is in the process of transitioning. Androgynous is a gender expression, that term, and that is someone who appears or identifies as neither man nor woman. They have more of a gender neutral type of presentation to the world. And two-spirit or third gender are cultural terms, and many cultures have language that they use to identify individuals who fall under the trans umbrella. And two-spirit is a Native American one. So it means I am one being, but I have two spirits inside me. So let's talk pronouns. Our most common pronouns that we hear typically in our lifetime: he, him, she, her, they, them. You may also hear pronouns like ze or zir, because our language, again, is continuing to evolve, and the pronouns don't always fit the situation. So ze or zir may be a pronoun that you hear if you ask someone, do you have a preferred pronoun? Or what is your preferred pronoun? Using they or them as a singular pronoun has been an item for a lot of discussion. They and them, or the pronoun they has been reclassified as a singular pronoun by Webster's dictionary. But I've had many discussions about this, and I had a friend tell me, I can't use they as a singular pronoun because I wasn't taught that way in high school. But I challenge you to think about it, because we already use they as a singular pronoun. And we already use they as a singular pronoun in the sense where my friend in high school told me they were not taught that they was a singular pronoun. So when you think about it, we already use it that way. Another trick that I have heard over the time of doing this presentation is if you're really struggling to use, you're working with an individual and they tell you their preferred pronoun is they, what I would recommend if you're really struggling with that is imagine they got a mouse in their pocket. And so instead of saying, having a struggle with saying they're going to the market, you're referring to not just the individual you're working with, but them and their pet mouse. The biggest question I've received over the years is, what about the bathroom? I will say to you that if you have gone to the bathroom in a stadium, a movie theater, mall, conference, any other public place, you have likely already been in the bathroom with someone who identifies as transgender. Bathroom argument is an old argument, and I feel like we've seen it before. It is a fear tactic that's used to oppress people and it's the same fear tactic that was used with race or the lesbian and gay population. And it's important to understand that it is weaponized and designed to evoke fear, to drive an agenda of inequality and injustice. I promise you that when someone who identifies as transgender goes into a bathroom, they go into the bathroom for the exact same reason that you do, because it is a biological requirement. So what is recommended typically is going to be to create or help evolve gender neutral spaces, like gender neutral bathrooms where anyone can use that bathroom. And when that's not available, to treat people with respect and dignity. So what does gender dysphoria feel like? Gender dysphoria feels like a lot like everyone seeing you as an apple, when in fact, you're really an orange on the inside. It feels like you're an actor in a play, and you have the most difficult lines to memorize, trying to remember what to say in each situation. You may work with individuals who continue to try on different identities, but nothing really fits right. all of this can create an increase in anxiety and depression, especially in strictly gendered spaces like bathrooms, because you're not congruent with the way that the outside perceives you and the way that you are on the inside. And that can take an emotional toll on any individual and increase thoughts or attempts of suicide. It's important to realize that each individual's experience is unique, and we should not assume that they're the same. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the cost of being transgender. This data is from a 2016 National Center for Transgender Equality survey. And we don't have a lot of recent data collected over the past 4 years. And I'll leave that to you to understand why. But this data is from 2016. And in this survey, 15% of individuals reported being harassed, physically attacked, or sexually assaulted at work. 30% in the last year prior to the survey had received some sort of mistreatment. 27% were denied a promotion. 77% in the last year took steps to avoid mistreatment at work. That may be not coming out, not being their true selves at work and carrying that anxiety while they're in the workplace. It may be avoiding different people, different situations, and really kind of living a double life almost at times. 39% reported experiencing psychological distress over the past month prior to the survey. And an alarming 40% had attempted suicide in their lifetime. 40%. That doesn't count people who had succeeded suicide. It doesn't count people who had suicidal ideation. It counts for people who had attempted suicide. When you add race, specifically being part of the Black community and being transgender, the Black trans community is disproportionately impacted when it comes to violence, employment, housing, and healthcare. 34. That's the number that I'm going to give you because that is the average lifespan of a trans woman of color. That said, in statistics, they are often misgendered or miscounted in rates of death. 26% unemployment. These are pre-COVID numbers, so it's important to remember that even pre-COVID, the rate of unemployment was 4 times higher than the general public. 41% experienced homelessness, which is 5 times higher than the general public. 34% reported an income of less than $10,000 a year. 1/5 reported living with HIV. And a staggering 49% had attempted suicide. From the same survey, we did see encouraging changes. And these encouraging changes were almost exclusively surrounding when an individual who is transgender receives support. 60% reported their immediate family member was supported. 68% when they came out to coworkers that they were supported. 56% reporting that classmates were supported. 71% reported fewer symptoms of depression when able to use their chosen name. And 65% reported a decrease in suicide attempts when able to use their chosen name. Really just enforcing that asking, respecting the answer, and then following through on an individual's request, treating them with dignity, is the way to turn the staggering, terrible statistics around. So how do we have support in the workplace? As a social worker and EAP professional, you can make a great impact by working with the leadership teams, the human resources teams, and the legal teams. The first and foremost, and at the basic part of this, is to update this discrimination and harassment policy to include gender identity and expression. Definitely making sure that leadership is educated so there can be a clear and consistent message across the board, and that the support is rock solid and there are policies to back it up. creating a dress code that is gender neutral and ensuring that that is applied consistency across the organization, training yourself and other individuals within the organization about gender identity, gender expression, and just being mindful to not gossip or allow any discriminatory language to happen in the workplace. We talk about supporting individuals. Again, I will say use the individual's chosen name. If you don't know what it is, ask. If you're uncertain about pronouns, ask. Ask and respect the answer. This may cause you to have to challenge your own preconceptions. We all have them. It's normal. And it's incumbent upon us to be able to challenge our preconceptions, not gossip, and treat every person with dignity and respect the way that you would want to be treated. I'll leave you with this one quote today, and this is from Laverne Cox. It is revolutionary for any trans person to choose to be seen and visible in a world that tells us we should not exist. Thank you.